Alrighty, so let's go over week 4 U code checkpoint. This content, for the most part, is going to pretty much stay consistent, except I will update the week so you know, right? So in this case, we're doing what we did last week, except we're taking the ending code from 3 and copying into 4. But also when we do that, we have to have the latest folder in there as well. So here's the instruction. I just want to say that before I get started, right? The great way I grade it, the AI policy is all the same. But let's actually go look at the instruction, okay? So in this case, we're going to take what you did in week 3 code challenge, or U code checkpoint, and we're going to upgrade it, right? And again, I like this. I hope, and it seems like, and I just finished grading week 2 today. So it seems like most of you actually are enjoying this process, because this is really where you take what you've been exposed to and see how well it translates, okay? All right, so we're going to do a custom, we're going to upgrade that to actually have no math. We don't want the people taking the orders to have to do that in it, and memory, right? So this is, we're going to add, they have 2 new requests. They don't want to do math and they don't want to have to remember things. So we want to be able to keep those orders in there. And that's where we get to to introduce ourselves again, or to reintroduce or to bring back the idea of an array. That's such an important data structure, and then combining, as we have in the carbon footprint, the object, so that every submission of the form is an object within a array. Okay, so we're going to do the setup, right? So in here, right, and this is where I was saying you create a new folder in your public, copy the ending code, change the title, and then commit here. Okay, so now we're going to create a price calculator, right? So in this case, define a price for a t-shirt. Now, in this case, I'm actually noticing this week, and I was okay with it. We'll see how you feel about this, is that I actually gave a little less like detail, because that's the idea, is over time we should be taking what we're learning, read something like define a t-shirt for this price, right? Define gift wrapping for this. Now, can you use your number? Sure, right? Now, when we're defining variables, now in this case, and this is how I approached it, is when I see something like this, I consider these global inside the module, because here's what you're doing is you're setting up a new module. And so within that, some of the common practice, and I'm not going to require this, is actually to use all caps for your variable names. Right, this is a practice you may see, but I just want you to know, make sure in this case, I want you to know that, but then I say, okay, standard naming conventions of a camel case. I guess what I would say here is, if you do all caps, I wouldn't count off, just because that is a good thing you will see out in the world. So we're going to create a function here called calculate total. We are going to export that function. We're going to accept the order data. Now the order data will come from us calling it inside the app.js. This is a key piece right here. Okay, this piece right here is we're going to calculate inside of this function the total. So we're going to take the quantity times the shirt price plus gift wrapping if selected. So, and this is why I put this in here. The key word here is if. So what you need to do is write some logic. So if this, then calculate it that. So in this example, this is so good to be able to read something like this and figure out how to write the logic for it. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, this is such good stuff. So now once you determine what that price is, that total, right, calculate that total out, and it even tells you what the key needs to be, you're going to return an object. This pattern follows what we saw in the carbon footprint. So the difference is you're actually having to write that function, but in this case we're not writing any of those helper functions. Okay, so it's an abbreviated calculator here. Okay, now by the way, could you? Sure. Okay, so you return that object, and this is what it should look like, something like this, and go ahead and commit here. So now we're going to refactor the app.js, right? We're going to open it. We need to change how we handle the submit. Okay, so we're going to import everything from our new calculator. And this is the same style we saw last week. And by the way, in the future, we'll actually modify this to specify this function directly so that we have a locally defined variable. Don't worry about it for now. By bringing in everything, then we just have to know how to call the function inside of the module. So at the top of the file, before the modules, create a constant. Now this is the other thing, is we're going to create an empty array in this in our app.js. Now, unlike what I was talking about where I might do all caps, the reason I wouldn't here, and this actually gives you the variable name, is that this is actually going to be updated over time. It's going to be an empty array, so this is what we call an array literal, very much like what we encountered in the object literal. This is an array literal, where we actually just say, hey, here's literally the data structure I'm going to create. Okay, we use constant here, and this again was something you got in the AI quiz, right? Is the array reference doesn't change even though we push items into it. Okay, so having that understanding. All right, so now we're going to call the new calculator function. Okay, so this is the imported name. Then we're going to call the function, and now we're going to pass it the form data, right? This is the ordered data that we got before. Okay, I think this is noted up here, right? So order data up here because we already set up that object. Okay, so now we're going to use the spread. So now once we do this, we're going to create another new variable inside of this, in this case, the handle order submit. We're going to call it new. It's a const, a new order, right? We're going to use that spread operator to combine the order data and the calculated price, okay, together, and we add the timestamp. Now we've seen all this before. It's just using our context for now. Now once we do that, once we have that new object, that is a combination of merging those two other object literals, okay, now we're going to actually push, and this is the array method where we push that new that new order that contains all the order data and the calculated price into that order array that we created up here. Okay, then console log out the orders. I'll show you the output for mine in a minute. Okay, then open up the console, right? So by the way, you should be, and this is hopefully what you're getting as well, you should be testing after every one of these. Actually, before you commit, you should be making sure this works. Okay, and you can totally play around with different ways to test to make sure you're getting the right kind of output. Okay. All right, so now verify that your stuff works. I'll show you mine in a minute. Now, before I get to an optional step 4, because I really question whether I should do this, because this seemed like enough for this work, but I thought, actually could do the resulting display, but let's go to mine. Okay. So in this case, this looks very much like last week, except for mine, I actually end up putting the version 3 of the output, because that's just where we use text content. But in this case, you'll see why I put this here, because I also ended up doing an optional step. So the other thing we haven't done is cleared the form. So if I just put medium and I put here, now actually I want to make sure. Okay, so let's try that again, right? So I'm going to do 3, let's do large and GIF wrapping. Okay, so when I do that, and this is the text output from last week, right? Now I didn't play around with it anymore, but what I ended up doing, and I'll talk about this in a moment, is I did implement that module of results displayed, which I think is a really fun thing to do, and I'll show you kind of what I was thinking here. But as importantly, what you want to have here is you want to have in the console, matter of fact, let's do another one. And this is where I'm so tempted to do a clear form, but okay, for now. And actually, we could just call it, we could actually just give it, okay, so there's our second one. So what is that push doing, okay? So let's go back here just to see it. So when we're pushing that, we're pushing each of those order objects that contain that, all that new object, right? That order data and that calculated in one new variable called new order, and it's pushing it into the array, which allows us to keep the history, right? Now you can see my file names might be a little different. It's okay, whatever. I kind of give you some suggestion, but I code and then I look at the key to what they suggested, and I'm like, I did it a little different. As long as I got there, that's the important thing. Okay. So let me do one more just to say, okay, a small gift wrapped. Cool. So now I should see. So over time, what I'm seeing here is this will only output my current one. Okay. So this is where, in this case, you're actually calling. Yeah, you're just doing the text content. I was just looking for where that's at. Yeah, so in this case, this is verifying your work, right? In the console, you will see this. We already did text content to modify the display, right? But you will see that increasing over time. Okay, so now, optionally, if you wanted, and I thought, well, you know what, you could also earn a late pass here, is actually we need to implement the display module, okay, the results. Right? Now, you don't have to. Just do this if you feel like you want to take on something more here, right? And maybe or earn something as well. So I actually did give you the HTML, but I didn't give you anything past that, right? Now, a couple things you'll notice, and by the way, here's your order summary. Now, I ended up leaving my other one in place, so I did that. I had to come up with a new name. But also, when I refresh, notice that is not displayed, so that's where you do that display none, and then you change it in your code to actually display it. Okay, so but in this case, right here, okay, so initially it's not, and so part of what you would do inside of here is actually change that. Now, what I would probably end up doing is in attendance for 5 is actually maybe talk about this briefly since we didn't make it a requirement, but I would say give it a shot. And give me your opinion. Should we do a late pass for this one? Okay, so that's your 4. Give me your feedback. Do you feel like this was enough? Or again, this was really where you reach out for help when you need it. Working ahead is benefit. I know you've heard me say that. So I'm going to encourage you again. And I'm actually in week 2, and there was an AI issue last night which hindered some people from actually looking at this. But those students actually didn't hit it because they didn't do the AI until 8 o'clock at night on the due date, which I get as well. I'm just going to say again the benefit of working ahead, right, is that you can get help. So I hope you have fun with this. I hope you reach out for help, and I'll talk to you soon.